See only one doing that. It becomes expected. They stop checking in, stop reciprocating, and show up only when it suits them. When you finally pull back, they panic, not out of love, but because they've lost their emotional insurance policy. Machiavelli would remind you, if your loyalty is predictable, it will be exploited before it is appreciated. Test 4. The just this once plea. It starts small. Can you cover this? Cancel that. Overlook this mistake. Just this once. But it's never just once. You prove you'll bend your values to maintain closeness, and they'll keep pressing. That's not love. It's strategic pressure. Test 5. The you're too harsh defense. You speak clearly. They call you cold. You pull back. You're heartless. You stop tolerating everything. They call you cruel. This is how they turn your strength into a flaw. But the truth is, they don't miss your warmth. They miss access to the version of you that didn't require accountability. The version of you that let others act without consequences gone. And now that it's gone, they call it cruelty. But it's not cruelty, it's clarity. Machiavelli would have expected this. He would say, the closer someone stands to you, the more they expect you to absorb their chaos. And if you don't, they'll call you cold, say you've changed, and frame your growth as betrayal. Let them. Because a man who fears offending everyone he loves ends up surrounded by people who love how easily they can offend him. The solution is simple. Stop proving you're good. You don't need to justify your coldness, defend your detachment, or apologize for outgrowing emotional systems others depended on. Enforce your boundaries silently, consistently, and without flinching. Let them accuse, let them squirm, because once they realize the old version of you is no longer available, they will either evolve or you'll let them go. And either outcome strengthens your position. Being cold-blooded isn't about killing your heart. It's about defending your power, especially from those who never imagined you'd use it against them. If you don't protect your emotional center, you become the dumping ground for everyone else's chaos. Machiavelli didn't build walls to keep people out. He built filters to see who was worthy of getting in. And once inside, no one stayed without constant requalification. To create that same kind of boundary power, follow the rules. Rule 1. Never explain your emotional distance. You don't owe an explanation for silence, saying no, pulling back, or needing space. The more you explain, the more emotional leverage you give away. As Machiavelli would say, to explain is to invite negotiation. To act without permission is to signal strength. When they ask why you've changed, don't argue. Say, I've recalibrated. That refusal to bleed emotionally commands respect, or reveals you never had any. Rule 2. Set consequences, not conditions. Most beg for better behavior. Machiavelli didn't beg. He designed systems where disrespect had a cost. Don't say, don't do that. Show them what happens when they do. You disappear. You don't return when they panic. You return when, and if, you decide. Boundaries don't plead. They act. That's power. Rule 3. Never negotiate through emotion. Once people know you cry when pressured or chase when ignored, they'll stop respecting your mind and start playing your emotions. Machiavelli would never allow that. Emotional clarity is a shield. Once it's pierced, they stop aiming for your logic and start aiming for your wounds. Protect yourself by being unreadable under pressure. No long texts, no impulsive re-entry, no, I just feel like moments. Your silence becomes your leverage. Your stillness becomes your stance. If they want your softness, they'll have to earn it again. Rule 4. Define what you tolerate and never wobble. Most people adjust their boundaries based on who's asking or how tired they are. That's emotional inflation. It kills your worth. You need rules like, I don't respond to yelling. Once I create space, it stays until I reopen it. I don't reward apologies without change. Then you follow through, without exception. People don't test what's enforced. They test what's flexible. Machiavelli didn't punish often, but when he did, it was cold, surgical, and final. Do the same, or they'll keep gambling with your forgiveness. Rule 5. Don't fear being seen as harsh. This is where most people fold. You know you're being used. You feel your peace disturbed. But as soon as you enforce a boundary, you feel guilty. Because society tells you, if you're not endlessly patient, you're cruel. If you don't explain yourself, you're arrogant. If you don't let them back in, You're unforgiving. But Machiavelli didn't fear being called cold. He feared being called easy. And you should too. Let them say what they want. Let them rewrite your character to fit their pain. Because if you fear reputation more than reality, you trade power for perception, and perception changes nothing. You're not being cold. You're being uncompromising. Love without boundaries becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice without recognition becomes slavery. Machiavelli would never die on someone else's emotional battlefield. He would observe, withdraw, return only when respected. That's not cruelty. That's control. This is where most people hesitate. They say, I don't want to go numb. I'm afraid if I go cold, I won't come back. That fear is real, but it's based on a false idea that cold-blooded strategy means emotional disconnection. Machiavelli didn't lose his humanity. He mastered when and how to use it. Because in his world, and in yours, feeling everything means being controlled by everything. Cold-blooded thinking isn't cruelty. It's control. You don't stop feeling. You stop reacting emotionally. When your position demands calculation, you don't stop loving, caring, or connecting. You simply do it within the walls you've built. Walls that protect you from becoming another pawn in someone else's emotional game. Being cold-blooded doesn't mean you lack warmth. It means you choose when to turn the heat on, and for whom. That's not emotional absence. That's emotional intelligence. Control begins with your internal emotional framing. You shift how you process hurt. When someone disrespects you, you don't react, you calculate. When they lie, you don't spiral, you observe. When they withdraw, you don't chase, you interpret. Your inner dialogue changes everything. You move from asking, why did they do this to me, to what did this teach me about them? Machiavelli would take betrayal and ask, what can I extract from this moment that makes me stronger? The cold-blooded thinker views pain as positioning, not personal loss. You must master the art of slow reactions, because what truly unnerves people is not rage, but calm distance. Not fury, but quiet removal. When you don't respond with emotion, you're not weak, you're unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous. Machiavelli didn't act on impulse, he acted on advantage. Power isn't having the strongest emotion, it's having the strongest timing. Every time you're disrespected or replaced, you have two choices. Take it personally, or turn it into strategy. The cold-blooded mind doesn't cry over what it's lost. It catalogs who's capable of losing you and adjusts access accordingly. It transforms pain into clarity, distance into power, and loss into evolution. Emotional reactivity gives others power over your reality. But emotional discipline, that makes you the person no one wants to cross twice. You don't have to lose your heart. You just need to protect it with a system. Most people love like it's war, but they go in unarmed. They think, if I give them everything, if I love them through the worst, they'll come back. But Machiavelli knew hope is not a strategy, and kindness without discipline is self-destruction in disguise. So no, you don't close your heart. You build a gate. And behind that gate is a rule. Only those who prove consistency earn your vulnerability. Your warmth must be owned, not assumed. Your care must be conditional, not out of cruelty, but out of value. The final shift? Accept being misunderstood. This is where most people stumble. They want to be respected, but also liked. They want to be strategic, but still seen as nice. But as Machiavelli would say, if you need others to agree with your evolution, you've already surrendered your freedom to evolve. You will be cold. You will be seen as detached. You will lose people who only loved the version of you that bled on command. Let them go. Their discomfort isn't your burden. It's their grief over losing access to a version of you that was easy to hurt. Cold-blooded doesn't mean heartless. Detached doesn't mean disconnected. Strong doesn't mean selfish. But that's what they'll say the moment you stop overgiving, over-explaining, and over-loving. Suddenly, you're too much, too sharp, too different. And that's where most fail. They either stay soft and get used, or go hard and lose themselves. But Machiavelli walked a middle path, the path of strategic empathy. So how do you stay powerful without becoming the monster they accuse you of being? Step 1. Define your intention, not their perception. Ask yourself, am I setting boundaries to hurt them or to protect myself? Am I silent because I'm passive-aggressive, or because I've already said enough? If your answer is self-protection, not retaliation, you're on the right path. Machiavelli didn't care about seeming noble. He cared about maintaining position. And people who do that without cruelty are rare. That's your role now. Step 2. Show mercy without losing your stance. There's nothing wrong with giving someone another chance, but don't forget why you pulled away in the first place. Don't erase a consequence. Don't return without terms. You can offer softness, but never surrender. That's the balance. Step 3. Control your presence, not just your distance. People think pulling away is power, but Machiavelli knew a controlled presence is far more influential. You show up briefly, speak with clarity, exit while they still feel your absence. You become the reminder, not the enemy, the calm, not the chaos, the one who changed the temperature of the room just by leaving. That's authority without aggression. Step 4. Maintain standards, not control. You can't force respect. You can only make disrespect expensive. That means no begging for apologies, no forcing communication, no chasing understanding. You withdraw access, not out of spite, but to remove emotional privileges from those who no longer respect them. You let silence do the math, and if someone rises to meet your standards, you re-engage. If they don't, they never belong beside your evolution to begin with. Step 5. Let your kindness become selective, not exhausted. You don't stop being kind. You stop being careless with it. You give slowly, after observation, with internal checkpoints and clear exit strategies if things go off track. And if people call it transactional, let them. Unconditional giving sounds noble until it's weaponized against your peace. Now, you only give what aligns with your vision, energy, and emotional well-being. That's not selfish. It's self-command. Step 6. Don't defend your boundaries. Enforce them. If they call you cold, distant, or accuse you of changing, say nothing. You don't need to debate your transformation. Just keep walking. Because power isn't proved through conversation. It's revealed through consistency. And if they miss the old, you let them. But they don't get access to the elevated version of you until they've evolved beyond the version of themselves that abused your softness. Balance isn't a tightrope, it's a filter. You're not meant to become stone. You're meant to become a mirror, reflecting others clearly, giving warmth only where known, and remaining calm no matter who throws the first punch. That's Machiavellian empathy, strategic, conditional, and unwavering. You've seen the patterns, felt the consequences, and outgrown the version of yourself that was too soft to be safe. Now, the final step isn't theory, it's a lifestyle. Machiavelli didn't theorize power, he became it. And if you want to stay cold-blooded in a world that constantly begs you to shrink back into emotional servitude, you need rules, rituals, and repetition. This is how boundaries become permanent, without ever needing to be announced again. Habit 1. Move without emotional announcements. You don't tell people, I'm cutting you off, I'm healing, or I'm focusing on me. You just move. You slow your replies, stop over-explaining, and never re-engage once you've withdrawn. Real boundaries aren't speeches. They're written in consistency, not captions. Machiavelli didn't need anyone to agree with his silence. He just made sure they felt it. Habit 2. Stay polite, never overfamiliar. Your warmth should never be automatic. It should be earned and maintained. Greet with composure. Compliment with purpose. Exit while still respected. Why? Because the emotionally familiar man is easy to use. But the one who remains precise is impossible to manipulate. Your cold-blooded nature doesn't come from being harsh. It comes from being structured. Habit 3. Reflect before reacting. Always. Someone disappoints you. Don't snap. Observe. Someone crosses a line. Don't escalate. Catalogue it. Cold-blooded doesn't mean no emotion. It means emotion never moves before thought. This pause, this internal filter, is your edge. And when others spiral, panic, shout, or sulk, your stillness will intimidate them more than any outburst ever could. Habit 4. Never reopen what you close without requalification. You left for a reason. Don't come back without a new one. If you ended a friendship, relationship, or partnership, don't return just because they apologize or because it's been a while. Time doesn't heal betrayal. Standards do. And if they haven't grown, you haven't missed anything. Habit 5. Treat your piece as a private strategy, not a public statement. Don't turn your emotional maturity into content. You're not cold-blooded for admiration. You're cold-blooded so people respect what they can't access on demand. Live quietly. Protect deeply. Let the results of your self-control speak louder than any quote or video ever could.